Hello and welcome to another episode in this theoretical part, and this time I want to go on a side point. It's not really the main point in the whole area, but it's good to know and to be aware of that. What I have in mind here, normally you want to shoot maybe a wall like this to have a nice texture, but the wall itself is not just free. You can't get your shot, so there are no people in front of it. There's maybe just a big tree in front and some cars, always one here, one there, so there's no way to get away with time-based shooting or shoot first half and then the other one. So the only way that you get this, you go to the side and you get an image that looks more or less like this, and the tree is now here and you can get the whole area. Not perfect, not the way we want to have it, of course. And what I want to discuss here is, of course, that when you go then and you develop your image, you get this image here, and you have here in these areas something else. And of course, you want to get rid of that. That means you take something here and something there, the 2 points, and you move them out. Command T or Control key and just move it out. Scoop or perspective, whatever you like. Works in Photoshop very nicely, but on the end you get here in this area less quality than here. You could scale it down a little bit and then this quality is pretty acceptable. But the downside is, of course, and I go now here in the top view to this wall and I paint here my little tree again in, that when you shoot, for example, directly here in the direction to the wall 90 degrees as best as possible, the light that you get is a different light than when you shoot from the side, and I make this here very extreme at the moment. So let's start with a little test, and what I have done here is, of course, to place a gray card right into the sun. And what I have done here as well is to place a gray scale here to have it a little bit more sophisticated. So if you want to really measure something, you can do this here, of course. And I used here 2 clamps, not just to fix here the grayscale, also that I have an area where I can't touch the whole thing. Because the main theme here is, of course, the change of a surface, not only by angle, also when we have maybe something that is wet or that is maybe dirty or moistured. So when you see someone, and I say that here more in fun, when you see someone with his fingers on this area, I don't know if you can take him serious. Again, I joke here around, of course, these cards have to be thrown away anyways, more than often. You shouldn't have them longer than a certain amount of time because they get bleached out as well. So when you touch them, they are a little bit earlier in the trash can. What I want to do here is, of course, to point you to this area here, where we can see first of all the ISO, the lens, the f-stop and the time. And this is for all 3 of these images the same. And then when I go here with my little indicator into the middle, I can see here an average of 77 to 80, something like that. It's noisy here, of course. And then I go to the next picture, and I haven't changed here anything. Shot a second after that, just moved the camera around, and we come here with 70. Again, here we have something around 80, and the numbers go up to 100 here in Lightroom. 70, and then I look from the side, and as expected, even lower, 65, 64, something like this. And I go here already up and down, and you see that the histogram is moving rapidly here as well. The big pie here, this one goes more and more to the right, the more we go perpendicular to it. So okay, that was I moved the camera. The next one is, of course, that I wanted to see what happens if I move only the card around. So I have the camera in one hand and the gray card in another hand. I have moved, only rotated the card in front of the lens. So this was the first one, and I have here for all cases the same settings, always the same time. And what I have done here is, of course, that was the first test, way over the top. So we have here 75 roughly around. Then I go here to the next picture and go here in the middle again, 76, 77. This time we have a little bit more light and I have moved it again. Now we have 80 here and this is all done with a very short distance in time, 72, and I move it out of the light and the camera, and I end up here with 67. So also here a huge difference, and this was the brightest here, so from 65 to 70, and we had something somewhere maybe here, was it, with 80? Yeah, so again 15% difference in brightness just by moving the camera around. And of course I wanted to know what happens with real material, and so I took a wood board and I would think maybe here this area is an indicator, 89, 88, and it's a little bit difficult finally to get this here from the side, and I hope I find this here. It's this small one here, 89, and to move it up here, and now it becomes really a little bit weird because I can't see really where I am. Now here I see it, and this is a little bit over 90. This goes more into the sun now here, but the truth is there's a change, and we can measure of course other areas here, and we will find maybe always a different value. It's a little bit different. I should have marked this here. But the rougher a material is, the less the differences will be because it gets scattered, and the more smooth, like the gray card an object is, the less I will have a chance to get the same lighting conditions. Okay, so we have taken a look a little bit to the directional. Now I want to see what happens here finally with wet and dry. So what I want to do here is of course to show you an image where we have a dark street. I wouldn't say black because this here is more black, or even this here, but normally streets are considered black. But when you take a look to the values here, then we get here something with 100 and I don't know. So let's have a look. I go here to my picker and I put this to 101 by 101 and take the average from it, and that makes the whole number thingy a little bit more silent, more peaceful, 120, 116, 110 here. So when we keep these numbers in mind, then I switch to the next one. Same street, a complete different time, and a complete different light situation. And I hope I have adjusted the image half the way. And I wouldn't say that it's really comparable. But my point is, it's the same street, it's a black street or a dark street as I said before, and now I go here with my eyedropper and we can see here we have values around 150 and above, 160 even in the blue area. And this is a complete different scenario here, just with a little bit water on it. And this is of course now wet, and we have compared it with a dry street. And so everything between will give me of course different values because the reflection is different. I could have taken here a polarization filter, which we will discuss later on, not in this episode but later in this series, but it would give me of course then a complete different scene, and it doesn't work all the way to the street. This angle of view is anyway not the best idea to take pictures from, but as I have introduced it, we get a perspective and we want to undisturbed the perspective later on. So this would be here maybe a few when I can't get anything else. Let's have a look to something that is not as flat as the street here. In this picture I want to put your attention to the darker stones here, because there we see the most change. And when I take my eyedropper here, which is set 101 by 101 and to average, so we get a lot of points here. Then we have here something with 70, 80 and even down into the 60s here, based on shadow or something like that, and where we have light. And when I go to the same material here, I have 160, 170 and 180 even. Very bright. This is the white spot here. So let's go here to the gray area, and where we would normally expect to have values like this one here. So there's a huge change just by the orientation of this stone, because this catches here now a complete different part of the scene. I would think more the sky, this one here maybe more the houses from the other street side, which is far away. Same stone here, 130, or here 89, 90. And so we can continue on this, and you get already an idea that this stone here, medium gray, is 160 and goes never over 170 if I see it here correctly. But this stone here is all over the place and mostly over 160, and of course sometimes a little bit lower. But this would be normally the stone that everyone would think of. This is darker. This is darker here when it's wet. In this situation with this camera setting, of course. So let's have a look to the same wall when it's in the dry area. So I wouldn't even pretend that I have created a similar light situation here. And again, to put my Cray card and my Macbeth chart in the rain, that's not my ideal idea. Especially when I don't need any wet surfaces, because the reflection really ruins the idea of a texture. Anyway, the idea here is to show you what happens if something is just wet or has reflective stuff in it. And here, this stone is pretty much the same. It's a little bit brighter now, but this one here is even a little bit darker than before, even if it appears now brighter. It was 60 something before we checked here. And this stone here was roughly in this way. This one here is similar. It hasn't changed so much. This one I can't really tell anything because it's in the middle of the sun, and to get these values here half the way right, this was too bright then. So we have here only in comparison between these two guys here, but I think it gives already a nice picture here, and here's a dark one as well. So dry gives me normal values, or whatever I think here is half the way normal, and the wet part really changes the game. I think you make your own examples, maybe just with a point and shoot, keep the settings exactly the same, and then try to get a measurement from it. It's very interesting. So my suggestion, of course, is how to overcome the problem that you have to shoot from this position here, and how to get finally something that is reliable, as if you had shot from here. The simple answer is you do both. One time you have then the information from this area and from this area, and the other time you have the whole material. And then you can compare, of course, what was given and what is right. And you can just take measurements and you can adjust then exactly what you have here. And that helps perhaps. And another note, when this wall here is very large, this angle here is a different angle than this one here. It would be the same case as if I go here and go to this side. We have different angles all the time, so have an eye on that. That is why I think always a huge distance, go as far as possible away, and I take here another little sketch. So when you are very far away, the angle from here to here, from this one to this one, is not that much as when you stand here exactly and shoot the same image, the wide angle part. And this will be, of course, dry or wet, always the same. This angle here is now a complete different one than this one when you stand here. So large distance helps, and when you take a look to a wall and you are very close to it, the sky will reflect much easier than when you stand far away, because then the angle in is not given here. It goes right back to the camera. It's only given here where the wall ends. Then that doesn't work very well because the sky is much further away. But you get the idea, I guess. And distance to a texture is, from my point of view, always a nice idea. I hope that helps a little bit to overcome maybe some obstacles. That's why I do this here. And see you in the next part. Thanks for listening. Have fun with it. Bye bye.